Mom and the nanny Aunt Wang gave birth at the same time, and bizarre bullet comments floated before my eyes. The nanny is about to switch the babies, the fake heiress is a born bad seed, and the true heiress died seeking revenge for her. I sneered as I watched the nanny's hand reach toward the crib. In my previous life, my fake younger sister hid my stomach cancer report and caused my tragic death, and my biological younger sister, the one the comment barrage cursed as a wicked seed, avenged me by burning through her life. This time, I held tightly onto my biological younger sister, the one I had been swapped back with. I'll bear the infamy, I'll go through hell, and I'll protect you for a lifetime. A blinding white filled my vision. The smell of disinfectant stung my nose until it grew sour. It's born, double happiness, high energy ahead. The nanny is about to make her move. Bullet comments, protect us, protect our real heiress. A few lines of semi-transparent text suddenly floated in the air. I jerked upright, my heart pounding wildly. Wasn't I dead? I had died of terminal stomach cancer, in a cold hospital room, in unbearable pain, and look quickly, this is your little sister. Father's voice woke me up. He came over carefully, holding a swaddled baby, a wrinkled little face, eyes closed. This is my younger sister, Lin Weiwei. No memories from my previous life pierced into my mind like an ice pick. It was this younger sister who smiled as she hid my early stage gastric cancer report. She watched me slowly rot away and die in agony. Family of bed 9. The mother is hemorrhaging heavily. Hurry. The nurse's shrill voice tore through the air. Dad's face turned deathly pale. He shoved the baby into the hands of the nurse beside him and rushed out. In an instant, the delivery room was left with only me and another nurse, and there was also the nanny in the neighboring bed, Wang Suihua. She had also just given birth and was lying there weakly. She had also given birth to a daughter. In the chaos, Wang Suihua's eyes were fixed tightly on the bundle in the nurse's arms. My younger sister's package. Warning, iconic scene ahead, countdown to swapping the prince for a cat, Wang Suihua's hand, she moved, I'm dying of anxiety. Protagonist, hurry up and step in. The barrage of comments crazily swept past, like a death sentence. Wang Suihua struggled to prop herself up, her voice faint. Nurse girl, I am a little dizzy. The nurse holding my younger sister immediately turned around. What's wrong? The moment the nurse approached Wang Suihua's bedside and bent down to check on her, Wang Suihua's gaunt hand darted like lightning toward the crib beside her. Her own daughter was lying in that little bed. Her target was the child in the nurse's arms, the one who belonged to my Lin family. Damn, she's here, she's here. Stop that old witch. Main character, don't just stand there, your sister is about to be gone. My heart nearly leaped out of my throat. Now, I shot up from the chair like an arrow released from a bow. Just as Wang Suihua's fingertips were about to touch my baby sister's swaddling clothes, I threw all my strength into crashing into her. With an ouch, Wang Suihua was knocked back onto the bed by me. The nurse was startled and held the child tightly. Miss Inan, I didn't have time to explain. My gaze was fixed tightly on the two cribs lined up side by side. On the left, Wang Suihua's daughter had a blue plastic band tied around her wrist. On the right, my younger biological sister had a red ribbon tied around her. In my past life, it was after this very second that the colors got mixed up. I rushed to the small bed on the right. The baby with the red ribbon was sleeping soundly and peacefully. My own younger sister, Lin Yi, the evil seed despised by everyone in her past life, the only person who ever remembered to pull the weeds from my grave, and the one who, in the end, set herself ablaze to carve out a blood-soaked path of revenge for me. What is the main character doing? Looking at his own younger sister Yuri, focusing on the wrong thing. The nanny is about to swap the baby. I'm going crazy. Can't she see the comments? I can see them. I saw it all very clearly. Wang Suihua clutched the ribs I'd bumped and gave me a vicious, resentful look. Then she put on that pitiful expression again. Nurse, my chest feels tight. The nurse, holding my younger sister, was once again drawn to her and turned around. What a great opportunity. A flash of wild joy crossed Wang Suihua's eyes. Her hand once again sneaked toward the crib on the right, her target, the child marked with the red circle. It's done, it's done. The real heiress is about to be swapped away. Where's the protagonist? Move already. I'm dropping this novel. Is the protagonist made of wood? Right now, I moved. The instant Wang Suihua's hand was about to touch the baby in the red circle, I didn't stop her. Instead, I reached toward the crib on the left even faster. I grabbed the baby girl with the blue plastic ring tied to her, Wang Suihua's own daughter, in my hands. She felt warm and delicate. Without hesitation, I lifted her with both hands and held the baby with the blue ring completely in my arms. Under Wang Sui's horrified, near utterly terrified gaze, I held her daughter in my arms and strode toward her own bedside. Then I gently placed the child beside her pillow. After doing all this, I suddenly turned around, pounced back to the right side crib. He grabbed the baby with the red band, who was sleeping soundly, and held her tightly in his arms. The tiny body was warm and soft, with a milky scent. This is my little sister, my long-lost little sister, Lin Yi, whom I had found again after losing her. I held her in my arms with all my strength. I squeezed so tightly that she let out an uncomfortable little hum. I loosened my grip a little, but still refused to let go. What is this operation? She gave the nanny her child, so the one she's holding is the real heiress. It wasn't switched. Holy shit. The main character switched herself back. 666. This move is on another level. The barrage of comments instantly exploded. Wang Suiwa was completely stunned. She looked at her own biological blue-circled daughter beside the pillow, then at the red-circled baby I was holding tightly in my arms. That face, pale from blood loss, instantly turned the color of pig liver. Her lips trembled, and the malice in her eyes was almost overflowing, and her voice was shaking. What are you doing holding your little sister? Quick, put her back on the bed. She struggled to get out of bed, wanting to swap her daughter back. I took a step back while holding my younger sister, my back held perfectly straight. Mrs. Wang, my voice was cold. You've just given birth. Don't move around, your daughter is beside your pillow, my sister. I lowered my head and pressed my cheek against my sister's soft baby hair, is in my arms. That's fine. Wang Suiwa's face went white in an instant, as pale as paper. The nurse, holding the baby, completely failed to react to what had happened. She looked at the infant beside Wang Suiwa's pillow, then at the one in my arms, a bewildered look. This, Missanin, ha ha ha. The nanny's face has gone all green, well done. The main character is awesome, laughing to death. Nanny, plan successful, plan ruined. So satisfying. This life's true heiress has returned to her rightful place. I held my younger sister's tiny body in my arms, feeling her real warmth and heartbeat. I had been given a second life. Little sister, this time, your older sister has caught hold of you. Those comments calling you an evil seed, I don't believe a single word of them. You burned away your own hatred for me. I remember it. In this life, I'll protect you. A bad reputation, I'll carry it for you. A hell, I'll storm it for you. Big sister, you just need to be well. Mom was ultimately safe despite the scare. When she was wheeled out of the delivery room, her face was pale, but she was fully conscious. Dad, with red-rimmed eyes, tightly held her hand. Honey, you've worked hard. Mom gave a weak smile, her gaze urgently searching. The child, where is my child? I immediately stepped forward, holding the swaddled baby. Mom, my little sister is here. Mom's eyes lit up instantly, and she struggled to raise her hand. Quickly let me see. I gently placed the swaddled baby into her arms. Mom lowered her head and looked at that wrinkled little face, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. So tiny, her voice choked with tears. My daughter. Dad also leaned over, his rough fingers wanting to touch my sister's face but too afraid to. She looks like you, honey. His voice was hoarse, so beautiful. Wang Suiwa was also pushed out. She was lying on the gurney, clutching her own daughter tightly in her arms. Her gaze was like a poisoned needle, fixed fiercely on the younger sister in my mother's arms. No, it was fixed on me. I met her stare and tugged at the corner of my mouth. Aunt Wang, the real show has only just begun. Back to the VIP ward. Mom held my younger sister in her arms, unable to put her down. Dad was busy making phone calls to share the good news. Wang Suihua, as a meritorious nanny, was also assigned a separate caregiving room. Holding her daughter, she tried several times to move closer to her mother. Madam, you're weak. Let me hold the child for you, she forced a smile. Before her mother could speak, I stepped in front of Wang Suihua. No need, Aunt Wang, I said calmly. You've just given birth, and you need to rest too, your younger sister has her dad, Mom, and me. The smile on Wang Suiwa's face froze. Missanin is so considerate, but taking care of a postpartum mother and child is my duty, your duty is to rest. I interrupted her, and to take good care of your own daughter. My gaze fell on the equally tiny baby girl in her arms. That was Lin Weiwei. In my previous life, she had taken my younger sister's place, enjoyed all the wealth and privilege of the Lin family, and in the end pushed me into hell. the fake heiress Wang Suiwa, as if scalded, suddenly tightened her arms to protect the child in her embrace. Her gaze flickered away. Well, of course, she said stiffly. Her mother felt a little guilty. Suiwa, and is right, take care of yourself first. Wang Suiwa could only hold Lin Weiwei and awkwardly step back the bullet. Comments became active again. The nanny still hasn't given up her evil intentions, keep an eye on her. The protagonist did a great job, the fake heiress has made her entrance, even at such a young age, she already has a face full of bad luck. Yuri going too far up there, what did the baby ever do to deserve this? Doesn't matter, if her mother is like that, then the root is crooked from the start. I stayed by my mother's bedside, watching over my younger sister. Dad finally finished making a round of phone calls and came over with a cheerful grin. Honey, have you thought of a name yet? Mom looked tenderly at her baby sister in her arms. Let's call her Wan Wan as a nickname. She was born a little late, as for her formal name. She looked over at Dad. Dad waved his hand grandly. Call her Lin Wei, the Wei in rose, so elegant. Boom. My mind felt as if it had been struck by a heavy hammer. Lin Wei, in my past life, this name belonged to Wang Suiwa's daughter, that fake heiress who had stolen someone else's place. I suddenly looked up and blurted out, no. Dad and Mom both looked at me in surprise, and then, Mom asked, puzzled. My heart was pounding wildly, and my palms were drenched in cold sweat. I absolutely couldn't let my little sister call that name again. That name was drenched in the deception and betrayal of my past life. My younger sister, she can't be named Lin Wei, I said urgently, my mind racing. Then what should she be called? What name can change this damn trajectory? Why, Dad frowned. Lin Wei is a pretty nice name, because, I glanced at the deep darkness outside the window and had a flash of inspiration, because my younger sister was born at night, call her Lin Yi. I nearly shouted, the Yi in wilderness, Lin Yi. Dad frowned even more deeply, a girl named that, too wild, isn't it, a little wild is good. I clenched my fists, my voice trembling slightly with excitement, full of vitality. Like the grass on the plains, unfazed by the wind, and impossible to burn away, free and unrestrained. I stared into Dad's eyes with an almost obsessive determination. Let's call him Lin Yi. Dad was stunned by the light in my eyes and, for a moment, said nothing. Mom lowered her head and gently stroked her younger sister's little face. Lin Yi, she softly repeated, then suddenly smiled. Okay. Mom raised her head, her eyes filled with a gentle light. The wind blows over the grass on the plain, once a year it withers and flourishes, wildfire cannot burn it out, the spring breeze blows, and it grows again, our Wan Wan will be called Lin Yi, grow up tenaciously like wild grass. Seeing that Mom agreed, Dad scratched his head and smiled too. Okay, I'll listen to my wife and daughter. Lin Yi it is, then. My tense back instantly relaxed, and a chill spread across my whole back. Lin Yi, little sister, you have a name now, a name that belongs to you alone, no longer that substituted symbol. You are Lin Yi. My wild grass little sister, Wang Suiwa, was holding Lin Weiwei. Standing in the corner of the ward, she heard our conversation. She heard the name Lin Wei being rejected. Hearing that Lin Yi had been finalized, her face, under the light, was as white as a ghost. The fingers holding Lin Weiwei clenched so tightly they nearly dug in. Lin Weiwei let out an uncomfortable whimper. Wang Suiwa hurriedly lowered her head to coax the child, but her eyes swept over me with venomous resentment, like a poisonous snake lurking in a dark corner. The nanny hates the protagonist to death. Even her name was stolen. She must be furious. Serves her right. Let her try to steal a child. Lin Yi is a great name, it's got spirit. I ignored Wang Suiwa's gaze and focused only on the little sister in Mom's arms. Lin Yi, the name your sister earned for you. Do you like it? After staying in the hospital for a few days, Mom and my younger sister's condition had stabilized, and we were ready to go home. Wang Suihua also held Lin Weiwei in her arms and went back to the Lin family home with us. She was Mom's savior, and had just given birth, so naturally everything was arranged perfectly for her. She moved into the spacious, bright nanny room in the Lin family home. A professional postpartum nanny was hired specifically to take care of her during her confinement. Lin Weiwei, meanwhile, was enjoying the treatment of a little princess. Imported milk powder and premium baby products were piled high in her room. Wen Suiwa held Lin Weiwei in her arms, her face beaming with smiles. Madam is truly kind-hearted, treating our Weiwei so well. She pretended to wipe away tears. Mother's heart softened. Wei Wei is the same as Wan Wan, they're both children, I watched coldly. Lin Wei Wei was babbling in Wang Suiwa's arms with a luxury pacifier in her mouth, enjoying everything that should have belonged to my younger sister. It didn't matter, I held Lin Yi tightly in my arms. Little sister, I don't care for all that empty stuff. Sis, I'll stay by your side day by day. Time went on. The two little babies grew up as if blown up with air. Lin Wei Wei was raised to be fair and plump, as lovely as jade and snow. She smiled at everyone, her voice sweet and soft. There was no servant in the house who didn't like her. Miss Wei Wei is such a good girl, Miss Wei Wei's smile is so sweet, Miss Wei Wei is so smart. Words of praise filled the air endlessly. Wang Suiwa held Lin Wei Wei in her arms, so proud that her tail was practically about to lift to the sky. Oh my, our Wei Wei is just so lovable. And my younger sister Lin Yi, she was like a true little wild weed, quiet, stubborn. Even when hungry, she wouldn't cry much, only look at you with her dark, rolling eyes. Give her a bottle, and she would hold it quietly and drink. Once she was full, she would play with her fingers by herself, or stare blankly out the window. She didn't like to smile, and she didn't like to make a fuss. Compared with the universally adored Lin Wei Wei, she seemed especially dull and unlikable. Even Dad couldn't help but say, "Why isn't Wan Wan as lively as Wei Wei?" Mom would always gently counter, "Our Wan Wan is just quiet and well-behaved." Wang Suiwa held Lin Wei Wei inside as if unintentionally. Sai Yi, Miss Wan Wan is just a bit aloof, unlike our Wei Wei, who's cheerful all day long and makes people happy just by looking at her. Those words pierced my heart like a thorn. I set down my workbook and walked over to the crib. Lin Yi was quietly gnawing on her little fist. When she saw me, her dark eyes blinked. She didn't flash the bright smile like Lin Wei Wei did. She simply reached out her little hand, damp with drool, and gently grasped one of my dangling fingers, soft and warm. Her little hand was gripping tightly, as if clutching a lifeline. At that moment, my heart softened completely. I leaned down and whispered in a voice only the two of us could hear, "Little weed, ignore them, big sister knows you're the best." She seemed to understand. Her black grape-like eyes looked at me, and she let out a little time flies. Lin Wei Wei and Lin Yi are 3 years old. Lin Wei Wei was as sweet as if her mouth had been coated in honey. Daddy is so handsome, Mommy is so beautiful, Sister Nan is the prettiest. She made her parents beam with joy. The servants at home were even more delighted by her repeated "Hello, Auntie" and "Hello, Uncle." Snacks and toys were sent to her hand in a steady stream. She was like a true little princess of the Lin family. And my younger sister, Lin Yi, she was like a little mute girl. Aside from the necessary hungry and thirsty, she rarely spoke. Most of the time, she remained silent. She liked to stay in corners and watch ants moving house, or squat in the garden, staring at the most inconspicuous-looking wild grasses and flowers. Once she squatted there, it would be for half a day. Dad shook his head. "Wan Wan is too quiet." Wang Suiwa held Lin Wei Wei in her arms and added fuel to the fire. Sigh, Miss Wan Wan does have a strange temper, a little, not like our Wei Wei. Mom would always pat Lin Yi on the head. Our Wan Wan knows what's in her heart. That day, Dad came back from overseas and brought 2 identical expensive princess dresses, pink tulle dresses, covered with sequins and crystals, sparkling. Lin Wei Wei's eyes went wide, and she clapped her hands and squealed, "Wow, so pretty, Wei Wei wants to wear it." She pounced on her father like a happy little butterfly. Dad laughed and picked her up, planting a kiss on her cheek. "Wei Wei will definitely look like a little princess in it." Lin Yi stood beside me, quietly looking at that dress. His gaze was calm. There was neither longing nor disappointment, as if it were just an ordinary piece of clothing. Wang Suiwa gave Lin Yi a shove, smiling insincerely. "Miss Wan Wan, hurry and thank Daddy. The new dress is so pretty." Lin Yi staggered from the push and nearly fell. I caught her by the arm and gave Wang Suiwa a cold look. Lin Yi straightened up, not looking at the dress, and not looking at her father. She raised her little face, looked at me, and held out one short finger, pointing toward the corner of the garden outside the window. A purple wildflower blooming in the crack between the stones. "Sister, look." Her voice was soft and thin, with a slight hoarseness. "Flowers, so pretty." I followed her pointing finger and looked. The flower was tiny, inconspicuous, yet it swayed stubbornly in the wind. It moved me more than the princess dress covered in sequins. I crouched down and hugged her thin little body. Big sister saw it, the flowers are little wild grass likes are the prettiest. Lin Weiwei had already eagerly changed into her princess dress, spinning around in the living room like a peacock displaying its feathers. Dad, look, look, is Vivi pretty, pretty, our Vivi is the prettiest, Dad, and the servants smiled and clapped. Lin Yi stood quietly by my side, watching the lively scene. I took her hand. Come on, sis, will take you to the garden, look at your flowers. Lin Ye's eyes lit up, and he nodded vigorously. We walked out of the living room, leaving that noise and praise behind us. A corner of the garden. That little purple flower swayed gently in the wind. Lin Yi crouched in front of it, carefully stretched out her finger, and touched the delicate petals. She lifted her head and gave me a very faint smile, like the first ripple melting across a lake in early spring. Quiet, yet enough to astonish my world. Sister, fragrant, she said softly. I crouched down like she did and leaned in toward that little flower. A faint, fresh scent of grass and wood drifted into my nose. It smells nice. I patted her on the head. Cleaner than any expensive perfume, more precious than any false praise. Sob, Soda Ono is so heart-wrenching, Vivi is so fake, Yekeo is the one with real feelings, the nanny is stirring up drama and putting others down again. So mad, the main character's sister is so warm, hug, little Yekeo. Sister, comments drifted by. I held my little sister's hand tightly. Little weed, don't be afraid, they don't understand how good you are. My sister understands. Before long, my two younger sisters and I all attended the same elementary school. I was in 6th grade, they were in 1st grade. Lin Weiwei is a little star at school. She has excellent grades, a sweet mouth, and is good at singing and dancing. Teachers and classmates all like her. Weiwei, you should lead the dance in this cultural performance this time, Weiwei, how do you do this problem, Weiwei, let's go home together after school. She was like a princess surrounded by adoring admirers, and my younger sister, Lin Yi, she was like a wild weed forgotten in a corner. Her grades were below average to taciturn, she had few friends, always carrying a school bag alone, quietly walking along the small paths on campus, or sitting on the steps in a corner of the playground, watching others play. Occasionally, mischievous boys passing by would mock her. Deaf-mute wild grass, wild child with no parents to love her. She never argued back, she only lowered her head even further. Once, I saw it with my own eyes. Several older girls surrounded Lin Yi. Hey, Lin Yi, I heard your sister is Linanin, the one who ranked first in the grade, why are you so stupid, were you picked up from somewhere, exactly, look at Lin Weiwei, she's the real daughter of the Lin family. Lin Yi was shoved around by them, her little face as white as a sheet. She bit her lip tightly and said nothing. Like a blade of wild grass ravaged by a violent storm, yet still clinging desperately to the ground and refusing to fall. I was burning with rage and rushed over. Get lost. The girls saw me and were startled. Senior Linanin, if I ever see you bullying her again. I stared at them, word for word. Just try it. The girls scattered in all directions. I squatted down and looked at Lin Yi. She lowered her head, her long eyelashes hanging down to cover her eyes. Her small shoulders were trembling slightly. I reached out, wanting to wipe away the dust on her face, but she suddenly took a step back, dodging my hand. My hand froze in midair. Oh no, my throat tightened. She lifted her head, her eyes were red, like those of a wounded little beast. There was no grievance in them, no plea for help, only a kind of stubbornness that broke my heart. And distance. I'm fine. Her voice was hoarse, with a barely noticeable nasal tone. After saying that, she walked around me, head lowered, and hurried away. Her small figure was held straight, yet looked so lonely. I stood there, feeling as if my heart had been stuffed with shards of ice, so cold and painful. Little sister, why are you avoiding me? Wild grass. Little sister is so heartbreaking, did she misunderstand her sister? Weiwei must definitely be causing trouble behind the scenes. The nanny and her daughter are behaving like monsters. The barrage of comments was also full of concern. Wang Suiwa and Lin Weiwei were like two nets tightening more and more around them, shrouding the woods, shrouding me as well. I must tear through them faster. The opportunity soon came. The city is hosting a primary school student painting competition. The theme is my home. The first prize comes with a generous cash reward and the opportunity to have the work displayed at the youth palace. Lin Weiwei is full of confidence. Dad, Mom, I'm going to win first place, she announced, holding up her paintbrush. Wang Suihua chimed in from the side. Weiwei is really good at drawing, even the teacher says she has talent. Dad was very happy. Draw well, if you win an award, Dad will give you a big reward. Mom also smiled and encouraged her, go Mui Weiwei. Lin Yi sat in the corner before an old drawing board, quietly sharpening pencils. No one asked her whether she wanted to take part. Her drawing board was very old, and her paints were the most basic kind. She kept her head down, her long bangs covering her eyes. Pencil shavings rustled down, like a silent sigh. I walked over to her and set down a brand new set of high-end watercolor paints. Try it, I asked softly. Her pencil sharpening motion paused for a moment. She didn't look up. She only gave a barely audible mm. Lin Weiwei's drawing was soon finished. Bright colors, a full composition, a beautiful villa, with a lush green lawn. Mom and Dad are holding hands, with bright smiles. She, wearing a princess dress, dances gracefully in the middle, and a blurry silhouette of a girl standing in the shadows of the corner, like a perfect family portrait. Wow, Vivi drew so well. Wang Suiwa was the first to exclaim, this will definitely win first prize. Dad praised it non-stop. Mom looked at the blurry figure in the corner of the painting, as if she wanted to say something but held back. Lin Weiwei lifted her chin proudly. Of course, I painted a happy family. Everyone's eyes were focused on that bright and colorful painting. No one noticed. Lin Yi in the corner quietly finished her painting. She painted very slowly and very carefully. She used the new paints I gave her. It wasn't until the day before the deadline that she handed the painting to me. Sis, for you. The moment the drawing paper was unfolded, my heart was clenched tightly. There were no bright colors. There is no pretty house. Vast swathes of gray, blue and deep green, oppressive and solemn. In the center of the painting is a blade of grass that has sprouted from a cold crack in the stone, slender, yet standing straight and upright. Dewdrops hang on the blades of grass, like tears against the dim gray sky. There is an extremely faint, almost overlooked streak of warm golden light. It falls diagonally onto that blade of grass, like the only salvation in despair. In the lower right corner of the drawing, she had written a crooked little line in pencil, my light. My tears almost fell. Was this what home looked like in her eyes? Cold, oppressive. Am I the only warm color? I carefully rolled up the painting. Sis will hand it in for you. Lin Yi nodded, then lowered his head again, retreating into that quiet shell. On the day I submitted the work, I personally went to the organizing committee. I solemnly placed Lin Yi's painting into the submission box. As I turned to leave, I saw Lin Weiwei and Wang Suiwa had also arrived. Wang Suiwa was holding Lin Weiwei's painting. They didn't see me. Wang Suiwa was stuffing a thick envelope into the hand of a staff member from the organizing committee. Her face was full of ingratiating smiles. Teacher Zhang, please take good care of our Weiwei. It's the child's first time competing. Teacher Zhang pinched the thickness of the envelope, beaming with a smile. Don't worry, little Lin Weiwei is very gifted. We'll definitely give her special attention. My heart sank. As expected, the selection results were announced very soon. No suspense at all. Lin Weiwei's happy home won first prize. Her painting was hung in the most eye-catching spot in the youth palace. Dad kept his promise and bought her an expensive grand piano. The Lin family was filled with joy. Weiwei is truly the pride of our family. Dad beamed with delight. Wang Suiwa held Lin Weiwei in her arms, smiling so broadly that her teeth showed. It's all thanks to Madam and Sir for raising her so well. Lin Weiwei wore her newly bought puffy dress, looking like a proud little swan, enjoying everyone's praise. No one mentioned Lin Yi. Her painting sank without a trace. She didn't even get an encouragement award, as if it had never existed. That day after school, I found Lin Yi in the small grove behind the school. She was sitting under a large tree. She was holding a small branch, drawing lines on the ground, a small back view, so lonely it was suffocating. I walked over and sat down beside her. Xiaoyiko, I called her softly. She didn't look up, and the branch in her hand paused for a moment. Not good. Her voice was muffled, with a heavy nasal tone. No, I said firmly, your painting is the best, big sister likes your painting the most. She finally lifted her head, her eyes red like a rabbit's. It was filled with hurt and confusion. But there was no prize, Sister Vivi has, that's because they used unfair means. I blurted out, as soon as the words left my mouth. I regretted them. I shouldn't have exposed her to these dark things at such a young age. Lin Yi froze. Unfair, she repeated the word, her gaze blank and bewildered. I held her in my arms, heart aching for her. The small body in my arms remained stiff. Little wild grass, I whispered into her ear, my voice very soft yet firm. Remember, it's not that your painting isn't good. someone stole the light that belonged to you, sister will help you get it back. She remained silent in my arms for a long time. So long that I thought she would never speak again. Big sister, her muffled voice came through. Are you, light? My heart gave a sudden jolt, as if brushed lightly by the softest feather, aching and swollen. I held her tight and nodded vigorously. Older sister is your light, always. Her tiny arms, for the first time, slowly and hesitantly wrapped around my waist, so light, yet it felt like she was holding the whole world. Wah, I'm crying. Little Grass hugged her sister. Vivi is so disgusting. Plagiarizing dog, the nanny is bribing. Report them, sister, make a move already. Tear them apart. The barrage of comments surged. I could feel the faint warmth and dependence of my younger sister in my arms. Lin Weiwei, Wang Suewa, what you stole, I will take it back tenfold. Wang Suewa and her daughter's behavior was like a poisonous thorn stabbed into my heart, but I knew this was not the time to pull out the thorn yet. I needed evidence. Evidence that could deliver a fatal blow. I started paying attention to Wang Suewa. On the surface, she was still the same diligent, honest nanny, quick and efficient, and utterly loyal to my mother, but a fox's tail will always show. I noticed she often avoided people and secretly answered phone calls. Her voice was kept very low, and her tone was irritated. Why are you rushing me? It'll be soon, that damn girl is watching me closely, wait a little longer. Vivi is still young. My instincts told me that the person on the other end of the phone was no ordinary person. I quietly noted the approximate times and frequency of her calls. On the way home from school, Vivi also became increasingly active. She was always surrounded by a few well-off hangers. On Weiwei, this new dress of yours is so pretty, my dad brought it back for me from Paris. Lin Weiwei spun around proudly. Wow, your dad is so good to you, of course. Lin Weiwei lifted her chin. I'm Dad's only precious daughter. She deliberately raised her voice, glancing at Lin Yi, who was walking behind them alone. Unlike some people, country bumpkin, they look like a rag no matter what they wear. The lackeys burst into laughter, eyeing Lin Yi with malicious intent. Lin Yi lowered her head and quickened her pace, wanting to slip around them from the side. One of the lackeys deliberately stuck out a foot to trip her. Caught off guard, Lin Yi fell hard to the ground. The books in her backpack scattered all over the floor. The skin on my knee was scraped off, and tiny beads of blood seeped out. Oh, sorry, I didn't see it, the lackey said hypocritically. The others laughed even louder. Lin Weiwei also covered her mouth and laughed, her eyes contemptuous. You don't even watch where you're walking, serves you right. Lin Yi bit her lip and said nothing. She braced herself on the ground, trying to stand up, but a hand reached out to her before she could. It was my hand. I stood in front of her, coldly sweeping my gaze over that group of people. My eyes finally settled on Lin Weiwei's face. Apologize. My voice was not loud, but it was as if it had been tempered in ice. The smile on Lin Weiwei's face froze. Ainen Jiejia, she was a little flustered. They were just fooling around, I said. Apologize, I repeated, staring into her eyes. Apologize to Lin Yi. My gaze was too cold. Lin Weiwei was unnerved by my stare. The followers beside her also fell silent. Lin Weiwei muttered unwillingly, sorry. Her voice was as faint as a mosquito's buzz. I didn't hear that. I stood my ground. Lin Weiwei's face flushed red, and she raised her voice a little. Sorry. I bent down, helped Lin Yi up, and brushed the dust off her. Shuya, let's go. I took her hand. Her hand was ice cold and still trembling slightly. Lin Weiwei looked at our joined hands, her gaze like a poisoned needle. We got home. Wang Suihua saw Lin Weiwei looking gloomy and immediately rushed over anxiously. Baby Weiwei, what's wrong? Who bullied you? Lin Weiwei pouted and threw herself into her arms. Mom, Sister Anan was mean to me. She made me apologize to Lin Yi. Wang Suihua instantly looked like a mother wolf protecting her cubs, shooting me a vicious glare. Miss Anan, Vivi is still young and doesn't know any better. As her older sister, how can you be so harsh to her? I looked at her coldly. She doesn't know any better, and neither do you, you even taught her to bully her own younger sister, Lin Yi is also a daughter of the Lin family. Wang Suihua was left speechless by me, her face flushing red and then pale. You're slandering me, whether I'm slandering you, you know very well. I stared at her, my meaning clear. Aunt Wang, some things are done by people, but heaven is watching, it's not that retribution won't come. The time just hasn't arrived. Wang Suihua was so unnerved by my stare that her eyes darted around, and she no longer dared to argue back. She could only hold Lin Weiwei in her arms and say, "Be good, Weiwei, mommy loves you." Ignore them, so satisfying. Shut her down completely. The nanny is guilty. There must be something fishy going on even at such a young age. Vivi has such a bad heart. Poor Yekeo's knee. It breaks my heart. The barrage of comments was full of praise. I led Lin Yi back to the room. I took out the first aid kit and cleaned the wound on her knee. She sat quietly, letting me do as I pleased. "Does it hurt?" I asked softly. She shook her head. "If they bully you again in the future, tell your sister." I dabbed the medicine onto a cotton swab. She was silent for a moment, then said softly, "I'm used to it." Those 3 words were like 3 knives stabbing into my heart. I put down the cotton swab and cupped her little face in my hands. "Little weed." I looked into her eyes, extremely earnestly. "You don't need to get used to being bullied, comma, you have your sister here, comma, big sister will protect you." Her dark eyes looked at me, as if mist were swirling within them. A long time passed. She nodded gently. Beneath the calm surface of the water, undercurrents surged. Wang Suehua and her daughter kept quiet for a few days, but I knew that venomous snakes do not hibernate. It is waiting for an opportunity. The midterm exam is approaching. The school organized a large pre-exam pep rally. The entire school's teachers and students were packed into the auditorium. The principal stood on the stage, spouting fervently about struggle and hard work. The air was stifling, and the crowd was noisy. I sat in the upper grade section, but my eyes couldn't help drifting over the crowd, searching for the figure in that corner. Lin Yi was sitting at the back of the lower grades, small and nearly swallowed up by the crowd. She lowered her head, as if she were seriously reading the book spread open on her knees. Everything seemed perfectly normal, until a flood of red bullet comments suddenly and frantically flashed across my vision. "Oh my god, look at Lin Weiwei. What is she holding? A thermos? What is she trying to do? Oh my god, she's walking toward wild grass." Sister, the target isn't the weed, it's the girl in front of the weed. That girl is Lin Ye's class study representative. She just had a conflict with Lin Yi. Lin Weiwei is going to pour boiling water on her, and frame Lin Yi for it. So vicious. Stop her quickly. The blood-red barrage was like an alarm. The hairs on my body stood on end in an instant. I sprang to my feet, heedless of the stunned looks from the classmates around me, and rushed toward the lower grade area like a madman. My gaze cut through the crowd of bobbing heads and locked onto the target, Lin Weiwei. She really did sneak furtively to the back of the lower grades. In her hand, she was clutching an old-fashioned thermos tightly. The bottle mouth was open, sending up wisps of scalding white steam. She fixed a venomous gaze on a short-haired girl sitting in the row ahead of Lin Yi. That girl was named Li Ting, the class study committee member in Lin Ye's class. 2 days ago, they had had a few disputes over collecting homework with Lin Yi. A malicious smile, utterly at odds with her sweet appearance, curled at the corners of Lin Weiwei's lips. She raised the thermos, aiming the mouth of the bottle at Li Ting's nape. The scalding water was about to be splashed down at any moment, and Lin Yi, who was sitting behind Li Ting, had no idea at all. It was a split second from disaster. "Lin Yi," I shouted at the top of my lungs. At the same time, I slammed through the people blocking my way like a shell, lunging forward without caring about anything else. Lin Yi was startled by my shout and looked up blankly. The moment she raised her head, Lin Weiwei's thermos bottle suddenly tilted, scalding boiling water, carrying a white steam of death, splashed out, targeting Li Ting's nape. No, the real target was Lin Yi, who was behind Li Ting. Lin Weiwei had calculated the angle perfectly. The boiling water would splash onto Li Ting, and the spray and resulting chaos would inevitably spread to, and even scald, Lin Yi behind her, and everyone would see that it was Lin Yi who had accidentally knocked over Lin Weiwei's water bottle. What a vicious way to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Time seemed to stretch. I saw scalding droplets flying through the air. I saw Li Ting turning back in terror, seeing the triumphant, sinister grin on Lin Weiwei's face, seeing Lin Ye's bewildered, helpless, dilated pupils. No, absolutely not. My body was faster than my brain. I shot forward like a bolt of lightning and lunged straight to the seat in front of Lin Yi. With all my strength, I slammed her hard to the ground, using my entire back. I tightly shielded her small body. PST. Scalding liquid was fiercely poured onto my back through the thin school uniform shirt. A terrifying burning pain instantly exploded. It was like countless red-hot steel needles stabbing in at the same time. A shrill scream pierced through the noise of the auditorium. It wasn't me who made it. It was Li Ting in the front row, who was directly splashed with boiling water. She clutched the back of her neck and shoulders, rolling painfully on the ground. Hot, so hot, help. The entire auditorium fell deathly silent in an instant. Everyone was stunned by this sudden tragedy. The next second, screams, cries, and the crashing of tables and chairs exploded all at once. What happened? Boiling water. Someone threw boiling water. Li Ting got scalded. Linanen is injured too. Lin Weiwei. The thermos belongs to Lin Weiwei. In the chaos, the thermos in Lin Weiwei's hand clattered to the ground. Scalding water spilled all over the floor. Her little face was as pale as a sheet, looking utterly terrified. She pointed in panic at Lin Yi, who was pinned beneath me. No, it wasn't me, it was Lin Yi. Lin Yi pushed me, the water bottle just accidentally spilled out. Damn it, slut, turning the tables. She did it on purpose. We all saw it. Where's the witness? Who saw it? It was too chaotic at the time. I guess only the protagonist knows. Is Wild Grass Sister okay? Big Sister blocked it with her back. The intense pain made my vision go dark, and cold sweat instantly soaked through my clothes. My back burned with a fiery pain, but I couldn't worry about myself. I propped myself up and hurriedly checked on my younger sister beneath me. Shuya, are you okay? Did you get burned? Lin Yi had been knocked to the ground by me. Her little face drained of color from fear. Her jet-black eyes were filled with terror as she stared blankly at me. Sister, blood. Her trembling little finger pointed at my shoulder. Boiling water splashed onto my neck and shoulder, raising a terrifying patch of red blisters, some of which had already broken the skin and were oozing blood. It burned with a fiery pain, but seeing her safe and sound, that bit of pain didn't seem to matter much. Sis is fine. I forced out a smile, trying to comfort her, but she suddenly sat up, her little hand reaching toward me but not daring to touch me. Large tears kept falling one after another. Sis, it hurts. She cried so hard she could barely catch her breath, showing such intense emotions in front of me for the first time. It doesn't hurt, little wild grass, don't cry. I endured the pain and tried to wipe away her tears. In the chaos, the teacher and the school nurse rushed over. Quick, take Li Ting and Anan to the infirmary, Lin Weiwei, Lin Yi, come to the office with the teacher. Wang Suiwa suddenly rushed out from nowhere and hugged Lin Weiwei tightly. Weiwei, my darling, you scared Mom to death. Her voice carried an exaggerated, tearful sob. Are you hurt? Let Mom take a look. Lin Weiwei immediately went into full drama mode and threw herself into Wang Suiwa's arms, crying loudly, Mom, I'm so scared. Lin Yi pushed me. Wang Suiwa glared viciously at Lin Yi, who had been helped up by the teacher. You again, you jinx, you little troublemaker, why are you so vicious? Do you want to scald Vivi to death? Her sharp accusation stabbed at Lin Yi like a knife. Lin Yi's small body trembled violently. She looked at Wang Suiwa and Lin Weiwei, then at me, who had been helped up by the school doctor, looking at my shoulder, which was burned and still bleeding. The shock and confusion in her eyes were slowly replaced by a deep, icy anger, like flames burning beneath a layer of ice. She clenched her small fists tightly, her nails digging deeply into her palms. In a voice I had never heard before, hoarse and icy, she said word by word, it wasn't me, she did it on purpose. She raised her hand and pointed straight at Lin Weiwei, who was still crying in Wang Suiwa's arms, a gaze like a dagger tempered in cold ice. The infirmary was filled with the pungent smell of disinfectant. I lay face down on the examination bed while the school doctor carefully treated the burns on my back and shoulders. The cold ointment was applied, bringing a brief numbness, followed immediately by a sharper sting. I gritted my teeth and said nothing. My mind was filled with Lin Yi's final look, cold, angry, like a trapped beast pushed to the brink, and when she pointed at Lin Weiwei, that hoarse yet unmistakably clear accusation, it was intentional on her part. My heart felt as if it were being tightly gripped by an invisible hand, bitter and sour, yet carrying a trace of secret pride. My little wild grass has finally begun to resist, but what followed was an even deeper worry. I know all too well Wang Suiwa and her daughter's talent for twisting right and wrong and stirring up trouble. Li Ting was badly injured, with large areas of redness and swelling, and blisters on the back of her neck and shoulders. She was rushed to the hospital. How much weight could Lin Yi's accusation carry in the face of Lin Weiwei's fragility and Wang Suiwa's righteous indignation? There must be a storm raging in the principal's office right now. Hang in there. The school nurse's voice pulled me back to reality. She was treating the largest blister on my shoulder, pricking it open with a disinfected needle. The sharp sting made my body jerk suddenly, and cold sweat broke out instantly. Hiss, it'll be ready soon. The school nurse worked quickly. Luckily, you dodged in time. Only your back got splashed, and your clothes blocked it a bit. It's not too serious, and it won't leave a scar, as for Li Ting, sigh. The school nurse didn't continue, but the heaviness in her tone said it all. Li Ting's injuries were probably... I closed my eyes. Lin Weiwei, Wang Suihua, you are so ruthless, to frame Lin Yi and ruin a study committee member who might threaten Lin Weiwei. You actually resorted to such vicious means. The sinister tactics they used to harm me in my past life now surfaced in my mind with terrifying clarity, hiding my medical report, defaming me in front of Dad, trying to drive a wedge between me and Lin Yi, in the end, forcing me into a dead end. Hatred grew wildly like poisonous vines, wrapping around my heart. I can't wait any longer. We must find their evidence of guilt as soon as possible, tear off the masks of this poisonous mother-daughter pair once and for all. The wound on her back had been treated and bandaged with gauze. The burning pain was temporarily suppressed by the cooling ointment. I put on the clean coat handed to me by the school doctor and walked out of the infirmary. Just as I reached outside the principal's office, I heard Wang Suihua's sharp, piercing wails coming from inside. Principal, you have to stand up for our Weiwei, our Vivi has always been timid since she was little, and she's the kindest of all. She wouldn't even bear to step on an ant, how could she possibly have deliberately splashed boiling water, it was Lin Yi. That wild girl, she's jealous of our Vivi, last time in the drawing competition, she didn't win an award, so she held a grudge, it was in the auditorium today that she deliberately shoved our Vivi, it was only because the water bottle got accidentally knocked over, my poor daughter, she was terrified, she's still trembling even now. Then came Lin Weiwei's tearful, hiccuping sobs in response. Wawa, principal, Lin Yi pushed me, I'm so scared, how is Li Ting doing? Classmate, sob, I didn't mean it, it's all Lin Yi's fault. Turning black and white upside down, and blaming the victim, I shoved the door open abruptly. The voices in the office came to an abrupt stop. The principal, the director of student affairs, and the homeroom teacher were all there. Wang Suihua was holding the shivering Lin Weiwei, crying with tears and snot streaming down her face. Lin Yi stood all alone in the corner. A small body stood upright, like a blade of wild grass surrounded by fierce winds and storms, yet refusing to bend. She lowered her head, her long bangs covering her eyes. I could not make out her expression, all I could see was her tiny fist clenched tightly. Her knuckles had gone white. My intrusion drew everyone's attention. When Wang Suihua saw me, a flash of venom crossed her eyes, and then she cried even louder, Missanin, you're hurt too, it's all this Jinx's fault. The principal frowned. Linanin, how are you feeling? I'm fine. My voice was calm, and my gaze swept over Wang Suihua and her daughter before finally landing on Lin Yi. Principal, the matter is not as Lin Weiwei said, she deliberately splashed boiling water, Lin Yi did not push her, you're talking nonsense. Wang Suihua, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, screamed, Miss Anan, I know you've never liked Vivi, but you can't slander her like this. She's still just a child, she didn't do it on purpose, it was all an accident. Lin Yi pushed her, where's the evidence? I interrupted coldly. You say Lin Yi pushed her. But where's the evidence, it was so chaotic at the time. Who could see clearly? Wang Suihua's eyes flickered. But our Vivi is the most well-behaved, she would never lie, she wouldn't lie. I let out a mocking laugh and turned to the principal. Principal, I request that the auditorium surveillance footage be reviewed, the surveillance footage will definitely reveal the truth. Wang Suihua and Lin Weiwei's expressions changed instantly. Lin Weiwei's sobbing caught in her throat, and a barely noticeable flash of panic crossed her pale face. Wang Suihua looked as if she had been choked, her face turning red from holding her breath. Sir, surveillance, she stammered. The principal and the dean of students exchanged a glance. The dean of students pushed up his glasses. Student Linanen, the auditorium. The surveillance lines had a problem a few days ago and haven't been repaired yet, so, today's surveillance is broken. Buzz, my mind went blank. The surveillance is broken. What? A coincidence. A flash of wild delight instantly crossed Wang Suihua and her daughter's faces. Lin Weiwei's crying started up again, tinged with the grievance of having survived a disaster. Sob. Principal, it really has nothing to do with me. Wang Suihua immediately joined in the wailing. Did you hear that? There's no evidence, you can't falsely accuse a good person, it was Lin Yi who pushed her, it was her. Like two venomous snakes that had been saved, they became even more brazen. Spraying their venom toward Lin Yi in the corner, I didn't, a hoarse, weak, yet unusually clear voice sounded. Lin Yi raised his head, his bangs were damp with sweat, stuck to his forehead, those pitch-black eyes were revealed, there were no tears in them. Only a deathly silence and coldness, like an abyssal cold pond with no bottom. She looked at Wang Suihua and Lin Weiwei, then slowly swept her gaze over the principal and the teachers, word by word. She repeated clearly, I did not push her, Yes, she did it, on purpose. Her gaze was too cold, too still. It carried an indifference that didn't belong to someone her age, an indifference that saw through everything. It actually made the noisy office fall silent for a moment. Wang Suihua felt a chill under her gaze, then flew into a rage out of embarrassment. You still dare to argue, Principal, just look at her, this is her attitude, so vicious at such a young age. What will she become when she grows up, someone like her should be. Expelled, expelled. These two words struck like a heavy hammer. Lin Yi's body swayed almost imperceptibly, she bit down hard on her lower lip, almost drawing blood, yet her gaze remained stubbornly fixed on everyone, like a lone young wolf, helpless yet unwilling to bow its head. A wave of icy fury instantly surged through my entire body. They didn't just want to ruin Lin Yi's reputation, they also wanted to completely destroy her future. I want to drive her out of the Lin family. Drive her out of school, make sure she never has a chance to get back on her feet, just like she did to me in my past life. I suddenly stepped forward and shielded Lin Yi behind me, with my injured body. I blocked those gazes, some suspicious, some scrutinizing, some disgusted. Who dares fire her? My voice trembled slightly from anger and the pain in my back, yet it was exceptionally loud. Without evidence, what right do you have to convict her, just because Lin Weiwei slandered her with empty words, just based on Wang Suihua's hysterical crying and rolling on the ground, Principal, Director. I looked at them with a burning gaze. The school is a place that values evidence, if there's no surveillance footage, there are still eyewitnesses, the classmates sitting in the back row at the time must have seen the truth, I demand an immediate investigation. The office once again fell into dead silence, only Wang Suihua's heavy breathing and Lin Weiwei's muffled sobs could be heard. The principal frowned tightly, clearly stumped by this tricky situation. The dean of students pondered for a moment. Student Linen makes a valid point, how about this? Everyone was frightened today, so go back for now, the school will definitely investigate this matter thoroughly, before the investigation results are out, no one should jump to conclusions. Lin Yi was not fired immediately. This was the best outcome for now. Wang Suihua was clearly unwilling to accept it and still wanted to say something. The principal waved his hand tiredly. Everyone, go back. Linen, please take good care of your injuries, classmate Lin Yi, go home and rest for 2 days first, wait for further notice, go home and rest for 2 days. That was practically a disguised suspension from classes. Lin Yi kept her head lowered, her long eyelashes casting shadows across her pale face. I couldn't make out her expression, I could only see her fist clenched even tighter, her nails dug deeply into her flesh. On the way home, the atmosphere was so oppressive it was suffocating. Dad got a phone call and rushed back from the company. His face was ashen. As soon as Wang Suihua saw him, she immediately threw herself at him, wailing and crying bitterly, Sir, you must stand up for the two of us, Weiwei was terrified. She almost got scalded to death by boiling water, it was all that little. That girl, Lin Yi, she has a vicious heart. She deliberately pushed Weiwei, if Weiwei hadn't been lucky enough to survive, sob, Lin Weiwei cooperatively shrank into her father's arms, crying so hard she looked like a pear blossom in the rain. Dad, I'm scared, it was my younger sister who pushed me, she hates me. Her father patted Lin Weiwei's back with heartache, then looked at Lin Yi, who stood alone to the side, silent, his expression complicated, carrying disappointment and anger. Wan, how could you do this to your sister, you're so young, how can you be so scheming, Dad, I couldn't help but cry out. The wound on my back started stinging again from my agitation. It wasn't Xia who pushed me. Lin Weiwei deliberately splashed water on me. She wanted to hurt someone, and then Dad rebuked me. And you're still defending her, look at how frightened Weiwei is, Li Ting is still lying in the hospital, Dad looked at Lin Yi, heartbroken. You've really disappointed me. Lin Yi kept her head lowered the entire time, like a lifeless sculpture, only the slight trembling of her shoulders betrayed the storm raging inside her. I didn't. She lifted her head, her voice hoarse like sandpaper scraping. Her eyes were fixed tightly on her father. Inside them was an unbreakable despair and a faint, barely perceptible plea. Dad, I didn't, you're still making excuses. Dad's anger grew even stronger. If you did something wrong, you need to admit it, apologize. Apologize to your sister Weiwei, apologize to classmate Li Ting, I did nothing wrong. Lin Yi suddenly roared out, a shrill voice, carrying the desperate strain of a cracking voice. Like the sorrowful cry of a little beast driven to the brink, her small body trembled violently with agitation. Tears finally began to roll down in large drops. It crashed onto the floor. It was her. Lin Weiwei did it on purpose, she's bad. They're all bad. She pointed at Wang Suiwa and Lin Weiwei, her tiny fingers spasming from the force. I didn't push her, I didn't. After shouting that one sentence, she seemed to have exhausted all her strength. She suddenly turned around and rushed upstairs. Bang! The door to her room was slammed shut hard. The loud noise echoed through the deathly silent living room. Father was stunned by Lin Yi's fierce resistance and was momentarily speechless. A hint of smugness flashed in Wang Suiwa's eyes, and she immediately wailed, Sir, just look at her. What kind of attitude is this, you did something wrong and you're still being so arrogant, it's just, simply a born bad seed, enough. Mom's voice came from the stairway. She had come downstairs at some point, her face pale, one hand gripping the railing. Obviously, she had heard everything just now. She walked up to the tightly closed door of Lin Yi's room and knocked softly. Wan. There was no response from inside, only faint, suppressed, broken sobs could be heard coming through. A mom's hand stopped on the door panel. After a long while, she sighed. She turned around and looked at Dad, her eyes tired and disappointed. Old Lin, the matter hasn't been investigated clearly yet, and you're already convicting your own child like this, Weiwei is your daughter, isn't Wan too? Dad was left speechless by the question. And is still hurt. Mom cut him off, her gaze falling on my shoulder wrapped in bandages, her eyes reddening. Let Anan go back to her room and rest first. As for Wan's matter, we'll wait for the school's investigation results, no one is allowed to provoke her again. My mother's protection temporarily suppressed the storm in the living room. Wang Suiwa pursed her lips unwillingly, holding Lin Weiwei in her arms. Be good, Weiwei, Mom will take you back to your room. Don't be afraid. I returned to my room. The wound on my back burned with searing pain. My heart hurt even more. My younger sister's final, desperate scream was carved into my mind like a knife. The intense despair and pleading in her eyes nearly tore me apart. We can't wait any longer. We must find the evidence immediately, otherwise, Lin Yi will be completely ruined, just like in my previous life. I endured the back pain and turned on the computer, started searching frantically, searched for Wang Suiwa, searched for her possible contacts, searched for her sneaky phone calls. Fragments of vague memories from my past life gradually pieced together. I remember that when I was in the late stages of stomach cancer and out of my mind, I seemed to hear Wang Suiwa making a phone call in the hallway. Where's the money? Didn't we agree? My daughter is already the young lady of the Lin family. This little bit of money means nothing, old Joe, keep forcing me and I'll spill what happened back then. Let's all go down together. Old Joe, what? I struggled to recall it. A name flashed through my mind like lightning. Zhou Dafa. Wang Suiwa's ex-husband back in her hometown, a gambling addict and a useless drunk. After I died in my previous life, my soul drifted about, and I seemed to have seen Wang Suiwa secretly go to a rundown game room to meet him, to stuff money into his hands. The two of them were arguing about something like the hospital back then, swapping babies, and hush money. Right here, I immediately searched for mahjong parlors in the city with the name Dafa. I quickly identified one, Dafa Mahjong Parlor, located in an old, rundown neighborhood in the western part of the city. Address, 17, Nidong Lane. Shilin Road, this is the place. I wrote down the address. Hope ignited in my heart. This might be the only key to turning things around. I had to get evidence of the transaction between Wang Suihua and Zhou Dafa, expose their long-ago baby-swapping scheme. Only then can the slander on Lin Yi be completely cleared. Only then can Lin Weiwei's fake heiress identity be torn apart. Only then can justice be restored for Li Ting. Only by becoming strong enough can I protect my younger sister. I immediately got to my feet. The wound on my back hurt so much that I gasped sharply, but this little pain means nothing. I changed into dark, inconspicuous clothes and put on a hat and mask. Enduring the pain, I quietly slipped out of the house. I took a taxi straight to Knighton Lane in the west of the city. It was already dark. The mud pond alley was narrow and filthy, thick with the mixed stench of cheap cooking fumes and garbage. The broken lightbox of Dafa card room flickered dimly deep in the alley. A few neighborhood punks, smoking and playing cards, were crouched at the entrance. I lowered the brim of my cap and hid in a concealed corner where I could still keep an eye on the entrance to the card room. Wait patiently. Time ticked by second. The wound on my back burned even more in the sweltering summer night. Sweat soaked the gauze, stinging the wound. I gritted my teeth and held on. Finally, after 9 o'clock at night, a familiar figure appeared at the entrance of the alley. Wang Suihua. She was wearing an inconspicuous old coat and a mask, sneaking glances left and right. Then she quickly walked toward Dafa Mahjong parlor. Instead of going in, she turned into an even darker dead-end alley next to the parlor. I immediately held my breath and quietly moved closer. I hid behind a corner piled with clutter. In the dead-end alley, a short, stocky, brutish-looking, drunken man was already waiting there. It was indeed Zhou Dafa, the same one he had seen in the photo. Where's the money? Zhou Dafa impatiently held out his hand, his voice hoarse and rough. Wang Suihua glanced warily toward the alley entrance and lowered her voice. Are you trying to rush me to my death? She pulled a thick envelope out of her old shoulder bag and shoved it into Zhou Dafa's hands. Save it, and you're off gambling again. Zhou Dafa greedily counted the money, then grinned. How is this enough? My daughter is now the eldest young lady of the Lin family, mountains of gold and silver, and you're only giving me this much. Shut up, Wang Suihua hissed nervously. Are you afraid others won't know? What's there to be afraid of? Zhou Dafa said indifferently. If it weren't for me back then fixing things with that nurse at the hospital, could you have switched our daughter in and let her go enjoy the good life? What a huge risk I took. What's wrong with asking for some money now? Wei Wei is my own daughter. Her money is my money. Wang Suihua trembled with anger. Zhou Dafa, have you no shame? If it weren't for your mountain of gambling debts back then, would I have taken such a desperate risk? Enough nonsense. Zhou Dafa stuffed the money into his jacket. Next month I want this amount. He held up 5 fingers. 50,000. Dream on. Wang Suihua screamed. 50,000. Trying to brush off a beggar. Zhou Dafa snorted. 500,000. You're crazy. Wang Suihua's voice went shrill. Won't you give it to me? Zhou Dafato leaned closer to her, his drunken threat washing over her face. Then I'll go tell the Lin family all about it. Tell them how, back in the hospital, you begged me in tears to help you swap the 2 children. Let's see whether your precious fake daughter can still be their Lin family's young lady. You. Wang Suihua was shaking all over with anger, but she couldn't say a word. 500,000. Next month. Zhou Dafa patted her face and gave a savage grin. If you're short even a penny, I'll make sure you and your precious daughter are finished together. After saying that, he staggered away. Wang Suihua was left standing alone in the dark alley. Like a statue of despair, I hid behind some clutter, my heart pounding wildly. The recording button on the phone screen had been lit the whole time. Every single word of the conversation just now, all recorded, ironclad evidence. Wang Suihua stood rooted to the spot for a long time. Only then did she leave in a daze. I clenched my burning hot phone tightly. It felt as if I were gripping a sharp blade capable of cutting through every shackle. Sister, I've got the evidence. I didn't go home right away. The wound on my back reminded me that now was not the best time to lay all my cards on the table. I need a stronger setting, a place where this venomous mother and daughter pair can never turn the tables again. The injury assessment report for Li Ting has come out. Deep second-degree burns. The area is not small. It may leave permanent scars. Her parents are devastated and have reported it to the police. The police have intervened. Under pressure from the school, it was decided that a school-wide meeting of all teachers and students would be held after the flag-raising ceremony on Monday, 2 days Later, the findings of the investigation into this violent assault incident and the disciplinary decision would be announced. I know, this is the opportunity I've been waiting for. Under everyone's watchful eyes, let the truth come to light. Let evil be punished. 2 days on the weekend, the atmosphere in the Lin family was as oppressive as the dead silence before a storm. Lin Yi locked himself in his room, refusing to eat or drink. His mother knocked on the door several times, but there was no response from inside. Only the occasional sound of suppressed sobbing could be heard. Dad sighed repeatedly, smoking one cigarette after another. He was both disappointed and angry at Lin Ye's refusal to admit any wrongdoing. Wang Suihua and Lin Weiwei, meanwhile, were unusually low-key. Lin Weiwei even considerately said that she wanted to go to the hospital to visit Li Ting and express her apology, was stopped by Dad on the grounds that it's inconvenient during the police investigation. But I knew they were afraid. They were waiting for the school's disciplinary outcome, waiting to see Lin Yi completely nailed to the pillar of shame. Monday, early morning, I got up early. The injury on my back still hurt after 2 days of rest, but it no longer affected my movement. I put on a clean school uniform. Facing the mirror, I carefully straightened my collar. The person in the mirror has eyes that are cold and resolute, like a soldier about to step onto the battlefield. Today is the day of the final showdown. In the living room, Wang Suihua was gently straightening Lin Weiwei's red scarf. Weiwei, don't be afraid. Her voice was kept very low, with a hint of barely perceptible excitement. After today, that wild little girl will never be in your way again. Lin Weiwei nodded obediently, but there was no trace of fear on her face, only a kind of indifference that did not match her age, and anticipation. Dad sat on the sofa with a grave expression. Mom looked worriedly at the tightly closed door of Lin Ye's room. Wan still refuses to come out, let her be. Dad waved his hand irritably. After doing something like that, she still has the nerve to throw a tantrum. I walked to the door of Lin Ye's room. I knocked gently. Yi. There was complete silence inside. Little wild grass. I pressed against the door, my voice very soft, yet very clear. Trust your big sister, today, big sister will take you to watch the sunrise. Watch the sunrise that dispels all darkness. Inside the door, there was still no response, but I seemed to hear an extremely soft, suppressed sob. The school's main playground, a black mass of the entire school's teachers and students. The atmosphere was solemn and heavy. On the elevated platform, the principal, the head of academic affairs, and 2 police officers in uniform all wore stern expressions. Below the stage, Wang Suihua, as the representative of the victim's family, was seated in the first row. She held Lin Weiwei's hand tightly. Lin Weiwei lowered her head, her shoulders trembling slightly, as if fearfully sobbing. Dad came too, sitting in the parents' area, his face dark with anger. Mom sat beside him, her face full of worry. All eyes were focused on the tiny, lonely figure standing beside the dais. Lin Yi, she stood there alone, wearing a school uniform washed pale by time, like a solitary boat in raging waves, on the verge of capsizing at any moment. Her face was pale, devoid of any color. Her lips were pressed tightly together, yet her back remained straight and upright, like a wild grass that refused to bend, bracing for the approaching, seemingly inevitable storm. The dean of students held the microphone and spoke heavily. Students, teachers, the vicious incident that took place in the auditorium last week, after the school's preliminary investigation, the basic facts are clear, person primarily responsible, Lin Yi. His voice spread across the playground through the loudspeaker. Every word struck Lin Yi like a heavy hammer. I saw her slight body tremble almost imperceptibly. Nails dug deeply into her palm. Below the stage, Wang Suihua's lips curled up in an uncontainable hint of smug satisfaction. Lin Weiwei also raised her head, a trace of pleasure flashing in her eyes. Dad painfully closed his eyes. Mom covered her mouth, tears welling up in her eyes, just as the dean of discipline was about to announce the decision that would ruin Lin Ye's entire life. I suddenly stepped out from the class lineup and strode toward the podium. Report. My voice wasn't loud, but it cut clearly through the principal's speech. Everyone's eyes in the auditorium instantly turned to me. The principal frowned. Lin Anan, do you have something to say? I ignored all the astonished and confused looks, and walked straight to the front of the rostrum. My gaze swept over Wang Suihua and Lin Weiwei, whose expressions had abruptly changed, then over my shocked father and mother. Finally, it fell on Lin Yi. She suddenly lifted her head and looked at me in disbelief. On her pale face A faint glimmer of light flickered for the first time in those dark eyes, like a dying person who had seen their only hope. Facing the officer on stage, I said in a loud voice, "Officer, regarding last week's boiling water injury incident in the auditorium, I have new and crucial evidence to submit, evidence that can prove who the real culprit is, evidence that can prove this was a carefully planned frame-up, this proves even more clearly." I spun around abruptly, my finger pointing straight at Wang Suiwa and Lin Weiwei in the audience, who had instantly turned deathly pale. My voice rang out forcefully, clear and resounding. "Those mother and daughter are not members of the Lin family at all, they are criminals who, 18 years ago, swapped babies in the hospital and stole someone else's life." Boom. The entire playground fell dead silent in an instant. The next second, an uproar erupted like a tsunami. Dead silence, a deathly silence, like an invisible pressure. It enveloped the entire playground. Thousands of gazes converged on me like searchlights. They converged on my finger, which was pointing at Wang Suiwa and Lin Weiwei. Focus on that mother and daughter, who instantly turned ashen and trembled like leaves. Time seemed to stand still. Only the sound of the wind blowing past the top of the flagpole, causing the national flag to flap fiercely, could be heard, breaking this suffocating silence. You're talking nonsense." Wang Suiwa was the first to react, letting out a piercing scream like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She shot up from her seat and lunged at me with bared teeth and claws. "You little bitch, how dare you slander me? I'll tear your mouth apart." She looked like a lunatic, with none of her usual honest and decent demeanor left at all. "Stop her." The police officer on the stage reacted extremely quickly and shouted sharply. The school security guards nearby immediately stepped forward and firmly held back the crazed Wang Suihua. "Let me go, she's lying, she's slandering me." Wang Suihua struggled desperately, her hair disheveled, her eyes filled with such vicious hatred it looked like she wanted to devour someone. Lin Weiwei was completely terrified and stunned. She slumped in the chair, her pale little face white as paper, trembling so badly she was barely able to hold herself together. Those eyes that always held a sweet smile now contained nothing but boundless fear and emptiness, like a rag doll whose soul had been drained away. Dad suddenly stood up, staring at me in shock, then at the deranged Wang Suiwa and the terrified Lin Weiwei, the color draining from his face. You, what did you say?" Mom also covered her mouth, her eyes full of stunned disbelief. The Dean of Discipline, holding the microphone, was completely dumbfounded. This, Linen and student, I have evidence," I said firmly, my voice spreading clearly through the dead silence. I took out my phone, hold it high, clicked open the audio recorded in the dead-end alley of Mud Pond Lane. Zhou Dafa's rough, greedy voice and Wang Suihua's terrified, resentful dialogue echoed with crystal clarity through the playground's loudspeakers, reaching the ears of thousands of teachers and students. "Where's the money, hurry up and die already, spend it sparingly. You went gambling again, how could this be enough? My daughter is now the Lin family's young lady. Mountains of gold and silver, shut up. Are you trying to make sure everyone knows, what are you afraid of? If I hadn't helped you bribe that nurse at the hospital back then, could you have swapped in your daughter to enjoy the good life, do you know how much risk I took, Wei Wei is my biological daughter, her money is my money, Zhou Dafa, have you no shame? If you hadn't been in debt up to your ears from gambling back then, would I have taken such a risk, cut the crap. Next month, I want this amount, 500,000, don't give it to me, then I'll go to the Lin family and have a little talk. I'll tell them how back then, in the hospital, you cried and begged me to help swap the two children, let's see whether your precious fake daughter can still be the Lin family's eldest young lady." The recording has finished playing. The playground was dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Only Wang Suihua's desperate, broken wails could be heard. "It's fake, it's all fake, she synthesized it, she's framing me." But no one believed her anymore. The evidence was irrefutable. Every word was like a dagger dipped in poison, tearing away the false facade of the mother and daughter completely, revealing the filthy, stinking truth underneath. My God, a switched at-birth baby. Not even TV dramas dare to write something like this, Lin Weiwei is the nanny's daughter, then Lin Yi is the one who is, the boiling water was deliberately thrown by Lin Weiwei to frame Lin Yi. Exclamations of disbelief and murmurs of discussion began to rise from below the stage. the buzzing grew louder and louder, like a volcano about to erupt. Dad seemed as if all the bones had been pulled out of him. He slumped into the chair, covering his face with both hands. His shoulders trembled violently. Mom stared at Lin Yi, tears streaming down her face, staggering as she tried to rush over. Wan, my Wan. The officer on the stage had an extremely grave expression. Student Linen, please hand over the phone to us as evidence. Anas Wang Suiwa, Student Lin Weiwei, please come back to the bureau with us immediately to assist with the investigation. The two police officers walked down from the stage and went straight toward the limp Wang Suiwa and the frightened Lin Weiwei. No, I'm not going. Wang Suiwa let out a pig-slaughtering wail, struggling desperately. Let go of me. I've been wrongly accused. Lin Weiwei finally came to her senses and let out a terrified scream, clutching Wang Suiwa's clothes tightly, but it was useless. With a cold click, the handcuffs snapped onto Wang Suiwa's wrists, like a puddle of rotten mud. She was dragged up by the police officer. Lin Weiwei was also restrained by the female police officer. Let me go. I'm the eldest daughter of the Lin family. You can't arrest me. Lin Weiwei completely broke down, screaming hysterically, kicking and flailing. Gone were all traces of sweetness and docility. Only a twisted lunatic remained, stripped of her false face and revealed in her true form. She was forcibly taken away by the female police officer. The wails, screams, and curses gradually faded into the distance. Only a deathly silence remained across the entire playground, and countless gazes focused on one person, Lin Yi. She was still standing there, standing alone beside the podium, like a weed that had been cruelly battered by a violent storm, yet miraculously had not fallen. There were no tears on her little face, only a blank void remained, as if they still hadn't come to their senses from this earth-shattering reversal. Their dark eyes stared blankly at Wang Suiwa and Lin Weiwei, who were being dragged away. Then they turned blankly toward me. Then she turned toward the podium again, toward her mother, who was running toward her unsteadily with tears streaming down her face, and toward her father, who had collapsed into a chair, covering his face with both hands, his shoulders shaking violently. Her lips trembled slightly, as if she wanted to say something, but could not make any sound. Step by step, I walked up to her. The wound on my back still throbbed with pain, but my heart felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted. I reached out my hand, gently wiped away a bit of dust that had somehow gotten onto her face. My movements were as gentle as if I were handling a priceless treasure. Little wild grass. My voice carried a barely perceptible catch. Look, it's dawn. She lifted her eyes in a daze, looked toward the sky. The morning sunlight pierced through the clouds. A brilliant golden glow bathed the earth. It dispelled all gloom and darkness. Warm and bright, it fell on her pale little face. It also fell into her black eyes, which had finally begun to focus and showed a trace of warmth. She slowly raised her hand. The small, icy fingers gently grabbed the hand with which I was wiping her face, very tightly, like a drowning person clinging to a piece of driftwood. Then she finally burst into tears with a wah. No longer stifled sobs, no longer desperate howls. It was a heartbreaking, after a close call, earth-shaking wail of grief and tears, as if she wanted to cry out all the grievances, fears, loneliness, and unfairness she had endured over the years. All at once, she threw herself into my arms. Her little body clung tightly to me. She cried so hard it was heartbreaking. Scalding tears instantly soaked through my school uniform. They also burned my heart. I held her tightly in return, with all my strength, like holding on to my whole world, lost and found again. Go ahead and cry, little weed, big sister is here, from now on, big sister will always be here. The sunlight fell upon us warm and cozy. It dispelled all the cold and gloom. A new day, it has begun, belonging to Lin Ye's true life. It has begun. Wang Suiwa and Lin Weiwei were taken away by the police. The storm they had stirred up was far from over. Based on my audio evidence, the police quickly identified Joe Dafa, that gambling addict, was arrested at the poker table, and after several rounds of interrogation, his psychological defenses completely collapsed. He confessed to the crimes committed 18 years ago in a torrent, like beans poured out of a bamboo tube. Back then, Wang Suiwa had just given birth to a daughter, Lin Weiwei. She learned that my mother was also giving birth in the same hospital, and that she came from a well-off family. A crazy idea took root. She begged her ex-husband, Joe Dafa, for help. Joe Dafa was drowning in massive gambling debts at the time, with no way out, and was swayed by Wang Suewa's promise of wealth and prosperity. He leveraged his connections as a temporary caregiver at the hospital to bribe a night shift nurse who had a gambling habit. During a brief moment when Wang Suewa and my mother were weak and asleep after childbirth, and others had temporarily stepped away, he carried out the baby swap. That nurse soon resigned and vanished, never to be heard from again. As for Zhou Dafa, he took the hush money Wang Suewa had originally given him and continued to gamble recklessly. It was only when gambling debts once again drove him to the brink that he began relentlessly extorting Wang Suehua. That was what led to the deal in Nightentang Alley. There is also the solid evidence in my hands. The case has been fully resolved. Wang Suehua and Zhou Dafa have been formally arrested on multiple charges, including child abduction and bribery. What awaits them is the severe punishment of the law. As for Lin Weiwei, since she was still a minor at the time of the incident and did not directly take part in the baby swapping case back then, her identity was confirmed, the biological daughter of Wang Suehua and Zhou Dafa. She was no longer the Lin family's eldest daughter. Regarding her deliberate act of scalding Li Ting with boiling water and framing Lin Yi, the police are still investigating and gathering evidence, but her future has already been tainted by a stain that can never be erased. The Lin family. In the span of one night, everything turned upside down. A dad seemed to have aged 10 years overnight. He locked himself in the study for a whole day. When he came out, he was holding a thick stack of documents. He walked into the living room. Lin Yi sat quietly beside her mother. Her mother held her hand tightly, her eyes swollen and red, yet she never once looked away from Lin Yi's face, as if no matter how she looked, it would never be enough. Wan, Dad's voice was terribly hoarse, carrying a heavy weariness and the shame of being utterly unable to face her. He walked up to Lin Yi and crouched down. This man, who had once commanded the business world with such force, was now as awkward as a grade schooler. He trembled as he reached out, wanting to touch Lin Yi's cheek. Lin Yi's body stiffened almost imperceptibly. He instinctively shrank back. He avoided it. Dad's hand froze in midair. A wave of immense pain and regret instantly welled up in his eyes. Wan, Dad, I'm sorry, he choked up, speaking incoherently. Dad is an asshole. Dad was blind, Dad, I'm sorry to you. This grown man actually covered his face and burst into tears in front of his wife and daughter. He cried like a helpless child. Regretful tears spilled out from between his fingers. Lin Yi watched him cry in silence. In those dark eyes, there was neither hatred nor affection, only an almost indifferent calm, as if looking at a stranger. A long time passed, so long that Dad's crying gradually subsided. Only then did she speak softly. His voice was still a little hoarse, yet exceptionally clear. Dad. This was the first time she had ever taken the initiative to call him that. Dad suddenly looked up, gazing at her through tear-filled eyes, his own eyes bursting with an unbelievable, humble hope. Lin Yi looked at him. There was no expression on his little face. My painting, it's called My Light, not a happy family. Dad froze then. Immense, overwhelming regret and pain once again engulfed him. He thought of Lin Weiwei's dazzling, highly praised first prize work, thinking of that vague figure in the corner, overlooked by everyone, thinking of Lin Yi's painting, which sank without a trace, neglected by all. Under the dim sky, the stubborn blades of grass growing from the cracks in the stone, and that faint yet unwavering warm light. He understood everything. He understood just how terribly wrong he had been all these years. He had personally taken a fisheye and held it up as a pearl, yet they treated the true pearl like discarded rags. They even pushed her into the abyss again and again. Wan, Dad was sobbing uncontrollably, unable to say anything beyond those 3 words. Lin Yi no longer looked at him. She turned her head and looked at me. Then, slowly, she slipped her small hand into mine. Her ice-cold fingers gripped mine tightly, as if holding on to her only support. I squeezed back hard, silently giving her strength. Mom wiped away her tears, her voice gentle yet resolute. All right, Lao Lin, we acknowledge the mistakes of the past, in the days to come, our family will make it up to Wan properly. Dad nodded vigorously, tears streaming down his face. Make it up to her. We absolutely will, even if it means going bankrupt. I'll compensate my daughter. He fumbled around and picked up the stack of documents he had brought. Wan, look, these are all of Dad's real estate, shares, funds, Dad has transferred everything into your name, and also, Dad has already contacted the best lawyer, that on-duty nurse from back then, no matter where she's hiding. We'll dig 3 feet into the ground to find her, sue her until she's ruined, and Li Ting, too, classmate, Dad will cover all of her medical expenses, hire the best cosmetic surgeon. He expressed his remorse and determination to make amends eagerly, like a dam urgently trying to patch a breach. Lin Yi simply listened in silence, his grip on my fingers did not loosen in the slightest. When Dad finally finished speaking, panting heavily, and looked at her with hope in his eyes, Lin Yi gently shook her head. Dad, I don't want the money, and don't take revenge either. Dad froze. Mom also looked at her in surprise. Lin Yi his head, his dark eyes clear as a bottomless pool. I want to go to school, I want to draw, I want to be with my sister. Simple words, yet it was like a warm stream, instantly washing away all the heavy sorrow and regret in the living room. Mom was once again in tears, holding her tightly. Good, go to school, draw, be with your sister. Dad was also choked up, nodding hard. Good, go to school, draw, Dad will send you to the best art school. Lin Yi leaned against Mom's arms, but her eyes kept looking at me, the corners of the mouth curved up ever so slightly, like the first little flower bud to bloom on a branch in early spring. Quiet, yet full of life. I know, my little wild grass, at last, it has broken free from the cold crack in the stone. Under the true sunlight, it has begun to grow, the dust has settled, life has opened a brand new chapter. Lin Weiwei was sent back to the hometown of her biological father, Zhou Dafa, a remote and impoverished mountain village, looked after by her elderly grandmother. Awaiting her were the legal proceedings that would follow, and an entirely unfamiliar, difficult future. The Lin family and she would have no further connection. As for Wang Suihua and Zhou Dafa, they would spend long years behind bars. Li Ting received the best treatment. The Lin family covered all the expenses and provided generous compensation. The scars may not be completely erased, but life has at last returned with hope, and Lin Yi, she became the Lin family's true little princess. Her mom and dad wished they could make up for the love she had missed over the past 18 years, doubly over. There was no need to even mention the material abundance. More importantly, there was that long overdue, carefully cherished tenderness. Dad turned down countless social engagements just to come home and have a meal with her. A mom became her personal art assistant, accompanying her on sketching trips and mixing her paints for her. But Lin Yi was still that quiet little wild grass. He did not become arrogant or spoiled because of the change in status. She still liked staying in corners. She liked watching ants move house. She liked drawing those inconspicuous, tenacious lives. Only, in her paintings, there was less of the gloomy palette, more warm sunshine, brilliant colors, and that blurry figure that often appears in the paintings, holding a little girl's hand. I know that's me, her light. We still sleep in the same room. 2 beds are placed side by side, just like when we were children. Now, she no longer had nightmares night after night. Every so often, when she woke with a start, she would be like a frightened little rabbit, clutching her pillow and running barefoot to my bedside. Big sister, I would lift the blanket. She would immediately burrow into my blankets, pressing tightly against me, drawing in warmth. Soon she would be able to fall into a deep sleep again. Her breathing would be even, her features would be peaceful. I know, the ice in her heart was slowly melting bit, by sunlight, by love. A weekend, I accompanied her to the youth palace. Her painting, My Light, was found again. After learning the truth, the organizing committee, filled with immense guilt, held a belated award ceremony for it. Grand prize, the painting was reframed and hung in the center of the exhibition hall. It replaced the one that had once belonged to Lin Weiwei. The happy home, the gray-blue and deep green cracks in the stone, the stubborn blades of grass, and that slanting, warm beam of light. It drew countless people to stop and gaze. People marveled at the tenacious vitality in the painting. They were even more moved by the silent attachment and hope contained within that beam of light. Lin Yi stood in front of his own painting, wearing the new dress her mother bought her, no longer the weed in the corner that no one noticed. She quietly looked at the painting, watching the people in front of the painting admire and praise it. There was no smugness on her little face, only a quiet, contented satisfaction. Sis, she gently tugged at my hand. Light, it's real. She pointed to the warm golden streak in the painting. It is real. I smiled and ruffled her hair. In the future, she lifted her little face and looked at me, her eyes sparkling. I'll paint lots and lots of light, okay, I nodded. Paint lots and lots of light, the light that belonged to her. More and more, brighter and brighter. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, Lin Yi was about to take the high school entrance exam. Outside the exam hall, I held a thermos and review materials, waiting eagerly, and insists. A crisp voice rang out. Li Ting ran over with a smile. She was wearing a fresh summer school uniform, and a faint scar could still be seen at the back of her neck, but her smile was radiant, her eyes bright, and she had long since stepped out of the shadows. For my little wild-grass sister, she handed me a bottle of chilled juice. May all the questions she knows be on the test, and may all her guesses be right, thanks. I took it with a smile. She's definitely fine, Li Ting said confidently. Wild Grass Girl is a total top student now, and her drawing is amazing too. Just then, the bell rang to mark the end of the exam. The examinees surged out like a tide. I spotted that figure at a glance. Lin Yi walked among the crowd with a school bag on her back. Her figure was upright like a little white poplar tree. The childish innocence had faded, and the outlines of a young girl were beginning to emerge. Still quiet, her gaze was calm and confident. Like polished obsidian, she walked straight toward me. Sis, how did it go? I handed her warm water and tissues. She took the water and had a sip, replying succinctly, pretty good, then it's a sure thing, Li Ting said with a smile, patting her on the shoulder. Lin Yi also curved his lips slightly. Sunlight fell on her youth. Is just right. Back home, Dad came out of the kitchen wearing an apron, carrying a plate of burnt braised fish, looking embarrassed. Wan is back. You must be hungry, right? Dad will show you what he can do. Mom took the plate, holding back a smile. All right, Lao Lin, stop poisoning our daughter. Sister Wang is about to serve dinner. Sister Wang was the new maid hired by the Lin family. She was diligent and honest. With a gentle smile, at the dining table, Dad asked enthusiastically, Wan. Now that the Gaokao is over, do you want to go out and have some fun? Europe, America, or, Dad? Lin Yi put down her chopsticks, her voice calm. I want to go back to my hometown, hometown, your hometown. Dad froze. Lin Yi nodded. Nidong Alley, I want to go take a look. My parents and I all fell silent. I understood where she was referring to a Wang Suewa and Zhou Dafa's hometown, the place where she should have been born and raised. Dad's expression was complicated, with pity and concern in his eyes. Wan, there, I want to go take a look, Lin Yi repeated, her tone firm. Okay. I held her hand. Sister will go with you. 2 days later, Lin Yi and I boarded the train heading to that remote mountain village. The mountain road was rough, and dust filled the air. Inyotong Alley was even more dilapidated than imagined, low earthen houses, filthy and cluttered streets, and the air reeked of livestock dung and poverty. Following the address provided by the police, we found a shaky, on the verge of collapse mudhouse. At the doorway sat an old woman with graying hair and clouded eyes. She was numbly rubbing corn. She was Zhou Dafa's mother, Lin Weiwei's grandmother. Lin Weiwei was sitting on a low stool right beside her. She was wearing old patched clothes, with dry yellow hair and a sallow, malnourished face. She no longer had even a trace of the poise and sweetness of the Lin family's eldest daughter she once was. When she saw us, she was first blankly bewildered, then she recognized Lin Yi. A flash of venomous resentment, jealousy, and deep-seated hatred erupted in her eyes instantly. Like a poisoned needle, she suddenly stood up, pointing at Lin Yi, her voice shrill and venomous. It was you jinx, ruined me. Ruined my mother, why don't you just go and die, get out of my house. Filthy abuse splashed over like sewage. The old woman glanced over blankly and continued to lower her head and husk corn, as if she had long since gotten used to it. Lin Yi stood there. He looked calmly at Lin Weiwei, who was in hysterics, looking at the overwhelming hatred in her eyes and the bottomless despair. He looked for a long time. Then Lin Yi said nothing. She simply took a thick envelope out of her backpack. Inside was a fresh stack of money. She walked over and gently placed it on the broken wooden table beside the old woman. The old woman paused in her motion of rubbing the corn. Her cloudy eyes looked at the stack of money, then at Lin Yi. There was no expression on her face. Lin Yi bowed slightly toward the old woman. Then she turned around and took my hand. Sis, let's go. Her voice was very calm. No resentment, no sympathy, only a sense of relief after everything had settled. As if she had finally let go of the last trace of connection to the past, we turned and left. Behind us came Lin Weiwei's hysterical sobbing and cursing, and the old woman's muffled, hoarse coughing. We walked out of Mighton Lane. We set foot on the dirt road back. The mountain breeze rushed toward us, carrying the fresh scent of grass and trees. the setting sun stretched our shadows very long. Lin Yi stopped walking. He turned back and took one last look at that dilapidated, impoverished alley swallowed by the dusk. Then, she turned her head. Facing the setting sun, she took a deep breath. Sister, it's all over. She looked toward the winding road ahead, leading out of the mountains. Her eyes were astonishingly bright in the sunset, like burning stars. Yeah. I tightened my grip on her hand. It's all over, let's go home. A brand new future right ahead, 1,000 miles of sunlight. Lin Yi was admitted to the best high school in the city with excellent grades. Her special talent in art, which earned her extra points, made her especially dazzling among the new students. She remained quiet, but she was no longer the overlooked presence in the corner. The world in her paintings grew wider and wider. Her style became increasingly mature, carrying the tenacious vitality of wild grass. Her works began winning awards in some small competitions. The name Lin Yi became known to more and more people. In my senior year of high school, my body began to show signs that something was wrong. My stomach often ached dully. My appetite decreased, and I quickly grew thin. A familiar sense of fear, like a cold venomous snake, silently crept up my spine. Gastric cancer, this demon that took my life in a previous life, was it here again? I don't dare tell my mom and Dad, even less dare I tell Lin Yi. She is at a critical stage in her studies and painting. I can't let her get distracted. I secretly went to the hospital. I registered for the gastroenterology department. Sitting in the waiting area filled with the smell of disinfectant, my palms were covered in cold sweat. The pain and despair of my previous life's late-stage stomach cancer came surging back like a tidal wave. It almost drowned me. Sis, a familiar voice, tinged with surprise and uncertainty, sounded in my ear. I looked up abruptly. Lin Yi was standing right in front of me with a drawing board on her back. Her clear eyes were full of concern. What are you doing here? She crouched down and looked at my pale face. You look awful. What's wrong? No, nothing. I subconsciously averted her gaze. I just have a bit of a stomachache, so I came to have it checked. Lin Yi's brows knit tightly. She said nothing more, only stubbornly sat beside me, waiting with me. Come into the consultation room with me. The doctor asked about my symptoms and prescribed some tests. Go get a gastroscopy and a biopsy first. The doctor's tone was calm, yet his words dropped a huge stone into my heart. Gastroscopy, biopsy. In my past life, it was after the gastroscopy that I was diagnosed with early-stage stomach cancer. Then, the report was hidden by Lin Weiwei. A chilling sense of fear seized me. In the preparation room before the gastroscopy, I changed into the gown, my hands and feet cold with nervousness. Lin Yi stayed by my side the whole time. Don't be afraid, sis. She held my hand. Her hand was warm and steady. I'm here. Her voice carried a strange kind of power, soothing my restless nerves. The nurse called my name. I stood up and walked toward that door, like walking toward an unknown judgment. Sis, Lin Yi called out to me from behind. I turned back. She stood there, upright and graceful, like a thriving little tree. Her gaze was resolute and warm, like a light piercing through the darkness. You'll be okay, she said clearly, word by word. Absolutely. I looked at the light in her eyes. The fear in my heart miraculously faded a little. I nodded and walked into the examination room. The examination process was long and agonizing. When the doctor came toward me with the biopsy report, my heart almost stopped beating. Scenes from my previous life flashed before my eyes. Desperate pain, a cold hospital room, lonely death, linen. The doctor looked at the report, his expression grave. I closed my eyes, waiting for the verdict. Chronic superficial gastritis with local erosion. The doctor's words sounded like heaven. Nothing serious, but pay attention to your diet and rest, take your medication regularly, and come back for follow-up checks, Fortunately, it was caught in time. It's not cancer, just gastritis. An overwhelming wave of ecstasy instantly washed over me. Tears welled up without warning. I covered my face and cried so hard I could barely make a sound. It was relief, it was lingering fear, even more, the ecstasy of surviving a disaster. The door to the examination room was pushed open. Lin Yi rushed in anxiously, seeing me with tears streaming down my face. Her little face instantly turned deathly pale. Sis, her voice changed pitch as she rushed over and tightly grabbed my arm. Doctor, my sister, the doctor smiled gently. Don't worry, little girl, your sister is fine, it's just gastritis. She'll be all right as long as she rests and takes care of herself. Lin Yi's tense body instantly relaxed as she let out a long, long sigh of relief. Then, she stretched out her arms and held me tightly. She buried her face in the hollow of my neck. I can feel it, a warm liquid, soaked my collar. She is crying, tears silently streamed down. Her body trembled slightly. You scared me to death. Her muffled voice carried a heavy nasal tone. Big sister, you mustn't be hurt, absolutely not. I hugged her back, patting her on the back, crying and laughing at the same time. Fool, big sister is fine, you still have to watch our little wild grass grow into a towering tree, and watch you paint so much light. She nodded hard in my arms, like a child who was both aggrieved and still shaken with fear, leaving the hospital. The sunlight was so bright it was almost blinding. Linny held my hand tightly, just like when I held her hand as a child. Sis, from now on. She turned her head to look at me, her expression utterly serious. I'll keep your medical checkup report, I'll keep an eye on you while you eat, keeping an eye on you while you rest, I'll be your little housekeeper. Looking at her serious little face, I couldn't help but laugh and my heart was warmed to the core. Okay. I squeezed her hand back hard. We'll do whatever our little housekeeper says. The setting sun stretched our shadows long, very long, leaning on each other, nestled close. Nothing else can keep us apart. My little housekeeper does what she says. From then on, my meals and daily routine were strictly supervised by her. The thermos always has stomach-soothing tea steeping in it. There are always warm snacks ready in the school bag. Staying up late, not a chance. Linny would always show up at the doorway of my room at exactly 11 o'clock, holding a pillow. Sister, go to sleep. The tone was not to be questioned under her careful supervision. My stomach trouble quickly improved. My complexion also became rosy. Mom and Dad looked on with delight in their hearts. Our Wan really has grown up. Mom sighed with emotion. Dad, however, felt a little jealous. Wan only has her sister in her eyes now. Linny just pursed his lips and smiled, continuing to pick food for me. Time flowed on in peace and warmth. Linny graduated from her final year of high school, with high scores in her academic subjects and first place in her art major. She was admitted, unsurprisingly, to one of the country's top art academies. On the day the admission letter arrived, the Lin family was celebrating like it was a holiday. Dad was so excited that he wanted to throw a banquet for 3 days. Meanwhile, was busy preparing Linya's luggage. Wan, take this down jacket with you. Winters in the north are cold, take this hand warmer too, and this one. Linny was caught between laughter and tears as his mom kept stuffing things into his hands. Mom, I'm going to school, not Antarctica, you have to take that too, Mom insisted. I smiled as I looked at them. My gaze fell on an old sketchbook spread open on Linya's desk. The notebook was very old, with frayed corners. I recognized it. It was the notebook Linya had used since childhood. It recorded all the hidden corners of her heart and mind, possessed by some strange impulse. I walked over and opened it. Most of the earlier pages were simple sketches of scenery, of flowers and grass, the sky, shadows in the corners. The brushstrokes were immature, yet carried a unique vitality. Turning to the later pages, my gaze froze. It was a pencil sketch. It depicted a hospital corridor. A girl wearing a hospital gown, skin and bones, was curled up on a cold plastic chair, staring blankly at the ceiling. A sense of despair seemed ready to seep right through the paper. And in the shadows at the end of the hallway, there stood a small, blurred figure. It was her. She watched the frail girl from afar. Her tiny fists were clenched tightly. In her eyes, there was no fear. There was deep, cold anger, like a volcano about to erupt. At the lower right corner of the painting there was a line of tiny, forceful writing. It seemed to pierce through the paper. If my sister is gone, I will burn this world to the ground. My heart gave a violent jolt, as if it had been struck hard by a massive hammer. The blurred fragments of memories from my previous life suddenly became crystal clear. After I die, Linya's frenzied revenge. He set fire to the house of Lin Weiwei's adoptive parents, Wayne Suewa. So it turns out, so she really thought that way. So deep down in her heart, she had always been hiding such a fierce, resolute thought for me. Sis, Linya's voice sounded from behind. She had somehow come over and saw my sketchbook opened in front of me. Her face instantly turned red, and she flusteredly tried to close the notebook. Don't look. Her voice was as faint as a mosquito's buzz. I held her hand down. I looked up at my younger sister, who was already a little taller than me. Her gaze flickered away a bit, carrying the shyness and unease of having her thoughts seen through. I reached out my hand. gently smoothed the slight crease between her brows. Little wild grass. My voice was a little choked up. Promise sister one thing, she looked at me blankly. No matter what happens, even if the sky falls, you are not allowed to do anything stupid, don't hurt yourself, even more importantly, don't even think about burning anything down. My gaze was fixed tightly on her eyes. Your sister wants you to live well, live peacefully and joyfully, become the brightest version of yourself, let sis be proud of you. Lin Yi stared at me blankly, looking at the lingering fear in my eyes and the unwavering determination there. She seemed to understand something. She understood the impact this painting had on me. She understood that I had come to know the darkness and resolve she had buried deep in her heart, that little-known hidden part of her. She remained silent for a long time, then she reached out her hand and carefully wiped away the tears that had spilled from the corners of my eyes, moved gently. Her eyes were clear and solemn. Okay, she nodded vigorously. I promise, sister, live well, live as brilliantly as you can, make sister proud of me. She picked up the pen beside that sketch. Below the line, I will burn this world, she wrote a new line, stroke by stroke, with force. Sister is here, the world is here, I am here. Finished writing, she closed the sketchbook. She gave me a bright smile, clean and warm, like sunlight breaking through the clouds, dispelled all the gloom. I know, the girl who once was trapped in darkness, filled with resentment, has truly moved on. In my light, in her own light, Lin Yi went north to attend university. The house suddenly felt much emptier. I graduated from college and joined my dad's company to help out. Work was very busy, but Lin Yi and I video called every day. She showed me her studio, her new paintings, the food in her cafeteria, and the overwhelming snowfall in the north. Sis, look, on the other end of the video, she was bundled up like a little bear, standing in the thick snow. Her little face was frozen red, but her eyes were bright like stars. She pointed behind her at a huge doodle drawn in the snow, patterns splashed out with paints of all colors, a wild, brilliant, like a burning life. Does it look like us? She exhaled a puff of white breath, her smile radiant. Yes, I nodded with a smile, just like my little wild grass, sis. She stamped her foot in displeasure. I've grown up, I'm not a little grass anymore, okay. I couldn't help laughing. You're a towering tree. Days passed quietly amid busyness and concern, until one late night, my phone started vibrating wildly. It was Lin Ye's number. The time was 2 a.m. An ominous premonition instantly seized me. I quickly picked up the phone. Shuya. But the voice that came through the other end was not Lin Ye's. Instead, it was an unfamiliar, anxious female voice. May I ask if you are Lin Anan's older sister, I'm Lin Ye's roommate, Lin Yi. Something happened to her, Buzz. My mind went completely blank. My phone almost slipped from my hand. What happened to her? My voice was shaking uncontrollably. She fainted in the art studio. My roommate's voice was choked with sobs. She had a terrible nosebleed. We couldn't stop it. They took her to the campus clinic, and the doctor initially suspects it might be acute leukemia, now on the ambulance heading to City First Hospital, Sisanan. Hurry and come, acute leukemia. These words were like poison-soaked ice picks. They stabbed viciously into my heart. In an instant, they froze the blood in my entire body. How could this be? How could this happen? My little wild grass. She had only just begun to bloom. I'm coming right away, I roared as I hung up the phone. My fingers were trembling so badly I could barely use my phone to book a flight, the earliest flight, a flight to the north, the airport at dawn. I ran like a madman. My heart was crushed by overwhelming fear. In my past life, I died of stomach cancer. In this life, I narrowly escaped death. Could it be that the curse of fate has been transferred to Lin Yi, using her life to exchange for mine? No, absolutely not. The plane roared through the night sky. Every second was agony. The scene of Lin Yi burning through his life for me in my past life, and the diagnosis of acute leukemia over the phone, kept intertwining, tearing at my nerves like a nightmare. My little wild grass, big sister is here. I won't let anything happen to you. Absolutely, rushed into the emergency center of the city's first hospital. A strong smell of disinfectant hit me in the face. Under the cold lights, I spotted him at a glance on the bench by the emergency room door. That curled up, tiny figure, Lin Yi. She was wearing a loose hospital gown, making her look even more emaciated. There wasn't a trace of color on her pale little face. Her nostrils were still stuffed with gauze to stop the bleeding. On the exposed wrist were countless needle marks and bluish-purple bruises from blood draws. She hugged her knees, burying the face deeply into the crook of the arm, a frail body under the bright light, trembling slightly, like a leaf about to wither in the cold wind. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. The pain was so intense I couldn't breathe. Xiao Yi. I rushed over, my voice hoarse. Hearing my voice, Lin Yi suddenly raised his head. Those eyes that were always calm and clear were now covered with bloodshot veins. They were filled with immense fear, helplessness, and the vulnerability that erupted the moment he saw me, like a drowning man grasping a floating log. Big sis, she let out a hoarse cry, thick with tears. She suddenly threw herself into my arms, using all her strength. She clung to me tightly, like holding on to the only lifeline. Big sis, she broke down crying in my arms, her body trembling like leaves in the wind. I'm scared, I'm so scared, they said, it's leukemia, big sis, am I going to die, I haven't finished drawing yet, not yet. Scalding tears instantly soaked through my clothes. They also burned my heart. I held her tightly, using all my strength, as if I could pass my life force onto her this way. Don't be afraid, little weed, don't be afraid. My voice was trembling too, yet it was unwavering. Sister is here, sister won't let anything happen to you, absolutely not, we'll find the best doctors, use the best medicine, I'll give you my bone marrow, I'll give you my life, big sister won't let you die. I made incoherent promises, trying to soothe her, feeling her desperate trembling in my arms. My heart felt like it was being torn apart by knives. Soon, the doctor came over holding a thick stack of test results. His expression was grave. Who is Lin Yi's family member, me, I'm her sister. I immediately stood up and shielded Lin Yi behind me. The doctor looked at me. Preliminary diagnosis: acute myeloid leukemia. The condition is very serious, he needs to be hospitalized immediately. Undergo chemotherapy, and find a matching bone marrow donor for transplantation as soon as possible, the sooner, the better. Leukemia, chemotherapy, bone marrow transplant. Each word felt like a heavy shackle, but I have no time to be afraid. Doctor, use mine. I didn't hesitate to extend my arm, draw my blood, do the matching test, sister. Lin Yi weakly grabbed my hand, her eyes full of worry. It's okay. I held her cold hand back and gave her a reassuring smile. Sister is in great shape. It will definitely work. The blood sample was quickly sent for testing. The days waiting for the matching results were like living in hell. Lin Yi was admitted to a sterile laminar flow isolation ward. The chemotherapy drug was injected into her young body like venom, destroying the cancer cells, and destroying her too. Violent vomiting, hair was falling out in handfuls, mouth ulcers made it impossible to eat. The already frail body rapidly wasted away, like a flower withering at an alarming rate. Every time I go to see her, through the thick glass, she always tries hard to force a smile for me. In a weak, breathy voice, she says, sis, I'm fine. But that forced smile was even more heartbreaking than tears. The matching result came out. The bone marrow compatibility between her and me was only 5 points, pathetically low. Transplantation cannot be performed. An overwhelming wave of despair instantly engulfed us. The light in Lin Yi's eyes dimmed little by little. Sis. She lay on the hospital bed, her voice barely above a whisper. Don't be sad, I am not afraid, don't talk nonsense. I pressed myself against the glass, tears streaming down my face. Don't say such stupid things, big sis will find a way. She definitely will. I frantically contacted the bone marrow bank. I mobilized all my relatives, friends, classmates, and colleagues to get tested for a match. Dad put aside all his business, and Mom stayed outside the ward day and night, praying. The Lin family offered $1,000,000 reward to find a matching bone marrow donor. The news spread, countless caring people came forward to be tested for a match, yet hope was kindled again and again, only to be shattered again and again. There was no match. Day by day, time passed. Lin Yi's condition grew worse and worse. The effects of chemotherapy grew poorer and poorer. Her body was like a battered bellows. May stop breathing at any time, the doctor told us tactfully. Prepare for the worst. Late that night, I stood guard in the corridor outside the hospital room. Fatigue and despair nearly crushed me. My phone suddenly rang, an unfamiliar local number. I answered numbly. Hello, may I ask, is this Miss Linanen? On the other end of the line was a young man's voice, somewhat hesitant. Yes, my name is Chen Mo. The other person's voice carried a trace of nervousness. I saw online the news that Lin Ye's younger sister was looking for a bone marrow donor, I just got tested for matching, the hospital notified me that my match with her, all 10 points matched. What? I shot up from my chair, my phone nearly fell to the floor. What did you say? My voice was shaking uncontrollably. Perfect match, the boy named Chen Mo repeated firmly. The doctor said it's very rare, and also very fortunate, I can donate, I can do it any time. A tremendous surge of ecstasy hit like a tsunami. In an instant, it swept away all my reason and exhaustion. I covered my mouth, tears burst forth like a dam breaking. They were tears of excitement, tears of gratitude. My little wild grass saved. Thank you, thank you. I choked back sobs. Where are you? I'll come right away, no need, Chen Mo said hurriedly. I'm right near the hospital, I'll come sign right away. The call ended. I rushed to the glass window of the ward, looking at Lin Yi, who was lying in a coma inside. Little weed. I pounded on the glass, crying and laughing. Did you hear that, found the bone marrow, perfect match, You're saved. On the hospital bed, Lin Yi in a deep sleep, his long eyelashes seemed to tremble faintly, the corners of his pale lips it seemed to curl upward by an extremely tiny arc, like a withered flower bud, feeling the call of the spring breeze. The surgery was a success. The bone marrow donated by Chen Mo was like a seed of life. It took root and sprouted in Lin Ye's body. The rejection reaction was within a controllable range. She was like a blade of grass that had endured the severe cold of winter. Under careful care, nourished by love, it regained astonishing vitality. The pale little face gradually returned to color. Sparse hair grew back into fine, soft fuzz. A glimmer returned to her clear eyes. When the doctor announced that she could be discharged and only needed regular checkups, the entire Lin family burst into tears of joy. Dad held Mom in his arms, crying like two children. I held Lin Ye's hand tightly, feeling the real warmth of her palm, as if I had grasped a rare treasure that was lost and found again. Sister, she looked up at me with her little face, her eyes sparkling brightly. I want to draw, okay. I smiled, though my tears would not stop falling. We'll draw when we get home, back to the familiar city, back to the sunlit home. Lin Yi couldn't wait to set up her easel. The paintbrush in her hand seemed to come to life anew. She painted new life, she painted hope, sunlight piercing through the gloom. Paint the old tree outside the hospital room window that survived the harsh winter and sprouted new buds in spring. Her painting style is more distilled, filled with a profoundly moving power, carrying the deepest insight into life and a sense of reverence. Half a year later, her new life series of paintings won first place in the provincial youth art competition. At the awards ceremony, she was wearing a simple white dress, standing under the spotlight, with a tall, upright posture, a calm and confident gaze, like a small tree that has weathered storms and rain, yet stands even more resilient and upright. This piece, New Life, she held the microphone, her voice clear and bright, is dedicated to my sister, the light in my life. The camera swept over to me. I sat in the audience. Tears had already streamed down our faces. The ceremony had ended. We walked side by side through the starlit night. The evening breeze was gentle. Sister, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. Thank you. She looked at me, her gaze clear and earnest. For bringing me back. For letting me live this life, can I call you sister? I looked at the starlight reflected in her eyes, and I also saw that tiny, stubborn baby, the sister I held tightly in my arms in the delivery room. I reached out my hand, just like I did 18 years ago, gently wiping away the non-existent dust from her face. And thank you too, little weed, would you be willing to be my little sister, in this life, big sister will protect you. We looked at each other and smiled hand in hand, walking toward a home lit brightly with lights. Walking toward a hopeful future. Starlight fills the sky, illuminate the path ahead, and illuminate the figures of us holding close to one another, never to be parted. After hearing this story, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share them in the comments. We look forward to hearing your voice.